When I was a kid, I obviously loved the Star Wars trilogy more than anything, but almost as much I loved the making of the Empire Strikes Back documentary, which, where I grew up, aired on First Choice Super Channel right after they played The Empire Strikes Back. So I wore out the tape on this thing, watching it back and forth. It's really wonderful. It's called SPFX, hosted by Mark Hamill. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. I kind of memorized this when I was 5 or 6 years old, watching this over and over again, and for the next 5 or more years, I was just obsessed with what it had to say about how movies had been made up to that point, special effects movies in particular, had been made up to that point, but also the specifics of how this film, how The Empire Strikes Back, was put together for the special effects. And this sequence in particular, where they are blowing up the Snowspeeder, something about this really got inside me. It was the mention here in the clip that they spent 8 hours, so basically a full working day, putting this shot together end to end, and that it ends up on screen in The Empire Strikes Back for a little over a second. This is nostalgia porn for me, watching Richard Edlund here work his way through this process. And obviously, we only get a small taste of it here. But anyway, for whatever reason, this just became my "this is what making movies is like" totem, which is that you focus this enormous amount of time onto this tiny, tiny little parcel of film. And then you cut all of these equally tiny parcels together, and by the time you're even doing that, probably many people are forgetting how long it took to do the one thing that is really just a brick in a very large wall. Here we're seeing the Snowspeeder in various frame rates being blown to bits. This just got lodged in my head, and it's been lodged in my head my whole life. I went to film school, I made a lot of shorts in my life, and this is part of the reason that just became such a driving obsession for me. So fast forward to my 30s, I was making a movie that was pretty experimental in form. One of the ideas of how the movie was going to be presented was that it was going to have a number of windows, and that in each of the windows something else was going to be happening. And I think I had a plan for 8 of the 9 windows, but I didn't have an idea for the 9th. So I was just like, well, you know what? As an homage to this reason I enjoy making movies in the first place, I'm just going to blow up a Snowspeeder for window number 9, because why not? So I bought the Saga Collection Rogue Two Snowspeeder, the one that came with Zev Sineska, and I went out on my balcony in the middle of winter. And by the way, this is not something you're allowed to do on a balcony. Not that I found out, I didn't get in trouble for this, but looking at it now, I'm like, boy, now that I'm a condo owner instead of just an apartment renter, I can tell you right now, you're definitely not allowed to blow spaceships up on a balcony. But anyway, I went out on the balcony, suspended a Snowspeeder on wires against a piece of green fabric for a green screen, and I carved a compartment out of the chassis for a large firecracker, and I lit the firecracker on fire. I didn't even do the thing where the Snowspeeder descends the wires. That was too complex for me because, again, this is really just something that it's playing in the corner of a mosaic of frames, not something that the audience is meant to be paying attention to. I was really just doing this for my own sense of whimsy. The reason I'm posting this on this channel, among other things, is to remind my fellow toy collectors that toys are for fun. So even if that means blowing a toy to bits, that's still fun, that's still okay. And so here it is. It wasn't a secret concoction, it was just some sparkler or firecracker that I bought, but it looked pretty good. I like how it turns the cockpit into a contained inferno for a moment there. Don't worry, Zev wasn't in there. It doesn't look anything like the movie. For one thing, it's a firecracker, so it just burned for way too long. And then it burned through the wires, which I should have seen coming. And then I threw a bucket of water on the whole flaming mess and hoped that nobody saw the billowing plume of smoke emerging from my deck. And that was it. For the movie that I made, that was it. It was just a little clip in a corner. Here's a frame of that now. And that was all that I needed to do with it. But now, putting this video together, I thought it might just be fun to see, when I put these videos together, I'm basically at the bottom of the barrel of free available tools. So we're talking iMovie and some browser-based editing tricks. But I wanted to see with those, what was the best I could do in terms of comping the Snowspeeder in front of something else and trying to remove as much of the green screen as possible, knowing that it was never going to look anything like the real shot. Just I wanted to see what I could put together with off-the-shelf stuff. I started to experiment with animating the background. I started to experiment with rotating the ship because the angle that I filmed this thing at was way too steep. I got about as far with it as I wanted to, and then I cut it back into the original sequence, just for fun.
This is how the shot was worked into the final sequence.
Set for position 3. Steady. Stay tight and low. Ow!